Hey guys, welcome back. Today on The Untidy Artist, we're making felted pumpkins. I was shopping in a really cute kitchen supply store and saw these darling felted pumpkins and wanted to buy all of them. They were quite expensive and I thought, you know what, I could probably figure out how to make these. So I went home and started making these and thought this would be a really fun tutorial to do. I'm excited to use these for Thanksgiving decorations and just for basic fall decorations. And they actually weren't very hard to do and they were a lot of fun to make. So let's grab some supplies and get started. The first thing you're going to need is some wool roving. Now this is just unspun wool, and you can see as you pull it apart, you can see all of the fibers in the wool, and this is what we're going to be using to needle felt our pumpkins. It comes in all sorts of fabulous colors. You can find it at places like Michael's and Hobby Lobby. I buy mine on Etsy, and I'll put a link below. I have a piece of felted wool that I'm going to be using for the stems. You could also use wool roving for this part if you'd like. And you could also use normal felt if you would like in this part too. And then you'll need some smooth foam balls. I find that the smooth balls work better than the ones that are a little bit more rigid. And they just seem to make, they work better for needle felting with our pumpkins. Then you'll need some felting needles. These are different than normal needles because they have little rivets in the needle that help to felt the wool and make it bind together. You can see the little rivets there. These are also very, very sharp. So if you're one of my younger viewers, be sure you have a parent helping you with this. And then I also have this tool. This is optional, but you can see it has a bunch of felting needles in it. This is completely optional, but it is great if you're needle felting a large area. Then I have this little piece of styrofoam that's gonna just, it works nice to put behind whatever you're working on. And then I have some foam tools. Now I bought these at Michael's to cut my foam. We're not going to be doing very much cutting. If you wanted to use a serrated bread knife or a kitchen knife, that would work also. Just be sure, once again, if you're one of my younger viewers, that you have a parent helping you with that part. I have an elastic band, just a rubber elastic that's going to help draw our lines on our foam balls. I have a pair of scissors, and that's it. So let's get into it. The first thing you're going to do is take your foam ball, and I'm going to cut a little piece off the top and the bottom. This is to give us the pumpkin shape, and we want it to be able to sit without rolling around. So we're just taking a little bit off the top and off the bottom. So you can see I've got my serrated bread knife, a steak knife, and then the little foam tool that came with my kit. My weapon of choice was the serrated bread knife. It just worked better for me. But if you are a younger viewer, make sure you have someone helping you with this part. So I'm just evenly cutting off a little bit on the top and a little bit on the bottom. If you want a shorter squattier pumpkin, then you'll want to cut more off, and if you want it to be a little bit taller of a pumpkin, more narrow, you won't want to cut as much off. And once that's done, we are going to cut the lines into our pumpkin. This is just giving us the form to felt over. So we want it to be as pumpkin-y as we can get it before we start felting it. So I'm taking my elastic band, and you can see it gives me a straight line, and we're going to cut into it. We're not going to cut very much, maybe 1/4 an inch. So I just use my knife and I kind of just drag it along the foam ball. We just want to make an indentation into the foam ball. And you can see that that elastic really helped us keep our line straight. And we have our markings for our first little rivets in our pumpkin. So I'm going to go over that again because we want it to be about 1/8 an inch deep so that when we're felting over the top of it, we'll be able to find those little rivets after we're done felting. I decided to use my knife. It worked a little bit better for me. And you can see I'm cutting an X into the top, so kind of making a pie shape. And then I'm going to do another one. So total, you'll have 4 cuts that go all the way around your pumpkin. Now I decided not to use the elastic as a guide anymore. I decided to just eyeball it, but that's totally up to you. And this is what's going to give us that authentic pumpkin shape. So once I had it the way that I wanted it, I went back over it and really made sure that those indentations were nice and deep enough that I'd be able to find them after we felted our first layer over the pumpkin. Okay, the next step is to start felting our pumpkin. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying I am not a professional felter. I would definitely say I'm a beginner. I have loved felting and I've really enjoyed learning more about it. So any of you experienced felters out there, I'm sure will have lots of tips for me. I'd love to hear those below. But what I'm just doing is I'm pulling some of my wool roving into little strips that you can almost see through, and I'm laying it in different directions. So I'll lay it horizontally and then I'll lay some vertically, and I just keep alternating the ways that I'm laying it down. This doesn't need to be perfect. You just want to get a nice layer that you can't see through anymore. So you notice when you pull little sections off, you can kind of see through them. You want to layer enough together that you can't really see through them anymore. And then I'm going to take my pumpkin, my little piece of styrofoam, and I'm going to wrap my felting around that. I'm going to wrap my wool roving around that. And you can see I've just got this loosely wrapped around. Once again, doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'm taking my needle and I'm going to start felting the roving into the styrofoam. And what this is doing is every time that little needle goes down, it's going to grab the different fibers and help bind them together. And I'm not doing this perfect right now. I just kind of want to tack it down. And once we have that first layer done, we're going to go back over it again and add another layer. So this is what we've got so far. And I'm making my second layer the exact same way that we did the first. And then I'm wrapping it around the other half. You'll notice you'll still have some white sticking through. That's totally fine. We're just trying to get a base layer down right now. And then once again, I'm going to take my needle and felt this part. This is a great time to turn on your favorite movie or listen to your favorite music. Just be really careful that you're not diverting your attention too much from your little pumpkin, because these felting needles are very, very, very sharp. So be careful. Also, I found that the better quality your felting needle is, the better luck you'll have with it. Don't go too crazy with your needle. They can break. And so as you're stabbing it, just make sure that you're not doing it too aggressively. At this point, I decided to grab my cool little tool that has several needles in it, and you can see it just works better to get bigger surface areas felted. But if you don't have this, it's totally fine. Just use the felting needle and keep going over it until most of that's tacked down. And then I go back through, and any little white spots I see, I'm going to take little pieces of my wool roving and just kind of wrap them around. So I just took a little piece and kind of overlapped it in different directions, and then I'm going to tack that down. And then I'm going to keep doing that until my entire pumpkin is completely covered, and so that I can't see any white through it. And you do want to give it a nice thick layer and completely felt it. And once it looks like this, we are ready for the next step. So I'm going to take my knife. This is the little tool that came with the foam kit. You can use a ruler, anything that has a straight edge in this part. And what you're going to do is kind of use your fingers to feel where those little rivets are that we put in our styrofoam, and mark it by pressing into it. And then you're going to take your needle and you're going to felt into those little rivets, which will give us our indentations in our pumpkins. Now, I kind of like to put my felting needle at an angle and drag it up the indentation. Be really careful on this part. This is where I'm really good at breaking my felting needles. And you can see I'm just pressing the wool into those indentations, turning this cute little orange ball into a pumpkin. And I go over each section a few times, and then I'm gonna feel again where my next little rivet is, use my knife to kind of mark where it is and push that wool down into the rivet. And then I'm gonna take my felting needle and I'm going to felt it into the little section. And you're gonna do that for your entire pumpkin. Now you'll notice at this point that some white might be showing through some of the styrofoam ball. When you felt into the little ridges, sometimes it can pull your wool felting and leave a part of the styrofoam exposed. So I just take another piece of my felt and I'm just going to cover that section up. I decided to go with this multicolored piece of wool roving, I really liked those just subtle little pops of color it added. A little bit of yellow, a little bit of pink. It just gave it a little bit of variation. And then go back over all of your sections and make sure it's evenly felted. And our very last step is to make our stem. So I'm going to grab my piece of felted wool. So this is actual wool roving that they felted into a sheet, and I'm going to cut a piece that's about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch, roll it up, and this is going to give me my stem. And then I'm just going to take my needle and very, very, very carefully, so I don't stab myself, I'm just going to felt it together. By pushing your little felting needle down into it, it will make all of those fibers felt together and create this shape of your stem. And then I'm just going to take my little stem and I'm going to stab it into the top of my pumpkin, and this will connect it to the top of my pumpkin. So you could also use some hot glue at this point. I decided to just stick with my needle, and you can see I'm just pressing the needle into the base of the stem and really making sure that it attaches to our pumpkin. Now, if you were using just a normal piece of felt, you could cut maybe a 1/2 inch strip, roll it up, and then in that case, I would actually use hot glue to attach it to the top of your pumpkin. If you're using the loose roving for your stem, you'll just form it into the shape of a stem, felt it, and then you can also attach it with a needle or some hot glue. And that's it, guys. You're all set. You have these darling felted pumpkins. I'm really excited to use these in a centerpiece for our Thanksgiving dinner. If you're having a Friendsgiving, a traditional Thanksgiving, or if you just want to celebrate with friends and celebrate fall, these are a really fun way to decorate. Please check out some of my other tutorials. I have a lot of other fall decor and basic decor tutorials with the holidays coming up. I have a lot of great gift idea tutorials, and I hope you'll check those out as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate your support. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. That would be awesome. If you want to be the first to know when I come out with a new video, click on that bell icon and you'll be one of the first to know. And if you have any comments or questions, post those below. I appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye.